Ladies, gentlemen, and folks, let's go ahead and get started with reimagining workplace culture with Mr. Marion Terrell, CHRO of MINT Dentistry. For some quick context, MINT has jumped from rank 100 on our most loved workplaces in America's list from 2023 all the way up to rank 36 in most loved workplace in America in 2024. So that is obviously a massive jump, and we're here today to hear all about how it works. So, Marion, if you could start maybe with some historical context for us, going back a couple of years ago, what was your perception of HR management at MINT Dentistry?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate that. So first and foremost, I think it's important to level set in terms of what I was asked to do 2 years ago prior to being asked to be the chief HR officer for dentistry. Essentially, in a nutshell, I was asked to help this high growth organization build a common culture, scale people processes, and increase company valuation. Full stop. And so I thought that one of the best ways to do that is to conduct benchmark research to figure out where we are, to get a sense of the work that we need to do to really validate. I didn't want to start doing work and it would not be adding the value that the company was expecting from me. So for me, it was important to really understand the work, meet the organization where it was, and sort of go from there. One of the things that I discovered to your question is that from an HR perspective, the intentions has always been very good for wanting HR, but there were no formal processes. As the very first official CHRO for the company, it was an opportunity for me to sort of understand where we had been and align it with the business objectives in terms of where we wanted to go. So creating a human capital strategy that sort of represented, embrace, and sustain the intent of where we had been the last 15 years, but also embraces the progressiveness of the culture piece that I'm sure we'll talk about in just a minute. So HR was very transactional, it's all about recruiting, particularly in the DSO world, all about just from a compliance perspective, making sure the labor laws were what they needed to be, employee training and development. It was decent in that it gave people an opportunity to understand what they needed to do. I didn't necessarily address how they needed to do it. Once I researched a lot of this, a lot of the training was rooted in telling people what to do, which in the new world order post-COVID, it's more than that. It's explaining to people how, it's honoring their wishes for career development, and training is just a whole different beast today than it was just 5 years ago. So that is what I walked into, to really understand how to create business partners and a spirit of collaboration and figure out how we could scale and build a common culture. And so I was just trying to create a benchmark so I could understand the work and validate the work that I needed to do. And so that's when I came across Most Loved Workplaces, Best Practice Institute, and to really help assist with understanding how I could connect to all 1,000 plus employees across the company. And it was just one of the things that I wanted to do something different. I didn't want it to be the traditional engagement survey that I've done hundreds of over the last 20 plus years of my career. I wanted it to be different. And I found different in BPI, different in that it was focused on a lot of different things. But for me, I just thought was phenomenal and really represented where this organization wanted to go, was exploring the sentiment, right? A lot of people, companies sort of ignore that. I think it's hard to ignore that now, particularly because sentiment is at the center of culture, in my opinion. And once I started to understand what people were telling me, what they needed, where we wanted to go, what the CEO, his vision was, and as I was unpacking the operations strategy for operationalizing the CEO's vision, I thought, what does sentiment mean? At the end of the day, sentiment is a simple word. It's a noun. It means thought, attitude, and judgment. It's influenced by often feeling and emotion. And so I thought, wow, this is probably 90% of what I'm hearing when I'm in and out of the clinics, just trying to get a baseline understanding of what people want and need. And so how you feel became central to a strategy that I needed to put together. And so particularly with the values that we have as a company, love, generosity, and perfection, I thought, wow, this is right in line with where we are trying to go as an organization. So our values are rooted in that question. Many conversations conference calls, Zoom calls, lunches. I was able to obtain a lot of good information. I spent a lot of time diagnosing not just the employee piece, but also looking at the patient experience piece, right? Because we are a DSO, we clean teeth and we make sexy teeth for a living. And so it was important for me to understand the level of service that people were receiving. And so that those two kind of go hand in hand, because we know happy employees lead to happy patients.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was all about the valued employees and the positive patient interactions. And so all of that was part of so it's like the physical that we should get once a year, right? And so we understand what is happening and we get the results. And sometimes there's some changes and some tweaks we need to make. We need to either drink more water or not as many carbs or whatever the situation was. So my health check for the organization led me to really take the information and do something with it, right? And so I'm just really appreciative of BPI for putting together such a great tool that allowed me to get at the heart of what it is we were trying to get at. And again, our vision continues to be part of our stats includes being one of the fastest growing DSO in the country. We started in 2009. We are the leading Invisalign provider in North Texas. We continue to launch big cities. We launched Atlanta in 2021. We've expanded across the company. We're in like 35 different metro cities. And we have a portfolio. A lot of people don't know this, but we have a portfolio. MINT is probably the largest and most popular, but our portfolio consists of not only MINT Dentistry, but MINT Orthodontics, Pure Dental, Assistant Academy, Pure Oral Surgery. We have MINT Insurance Services. We have True Music. We have a record label. There's so many things. This is a very entrepreneurial company. So again, just another validation point that I knew I needed to get at the heart of what sentiment means, because that means different things to different people. And so again, I feel like based on me starting with Best Practice Institute, we have gone down a really, really productive path, and it just keeps getting better.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love the analogy of it's like your annual checkup, right? Running the Level Workplace Index. The way I view it is our emotional sentiment analysis brings the humans behind the data to the forefront, right? It's not just quantitative data sets, it's measuring how people are feeling and really helping you define that sentiment. So that's fantastic. Thank you for the overview there. Now, if you could tell us a bit about your Culture Reimagined initiative.
Yeah, so Culture Reimagined was born out of a catalyst for change. It was the response to carry on this physical analogy that I was talking about. It was a response to a bad physical. We had some work to do, but the good news is we were willing to take the health check serious and make the changes that we needed to make. But just like with anything else, you first have to acknowledge that there are opportunities, and then you have to figure out what are you going to do about it. So part of the data and the baseline that was revealed to me is that we should probably be focusing on fostering inclusion, innovation, and just developing an empowered environment where every individual feels valued and equipped to succeed. And so the initiative sort of centered around connection, growth, and equity, right? And so we knew we needed to change that, but we also knew that we needed to develop a baseline definition of culture. And so, again, part of the information that I was able to obtain up and down and throughout the organization was a sense of accountability, a sense of behavior, a sense of consistency, a sense of trust. And so one of the definitions that we decided to align was that our baseline definition rested in the idea of culture being defined as the worst behavior tolerated. Cut to the chase, and we just went to the heart of it. And so if we are going to be this authentic organization that has values that read such as love, generosity, and perfection, then a lot of the first cousins to these values really get to behavior and accountability. And so, as I've often recognized in the 25 years I've been leading HR, is that sometimes you don't get to culture before you change some habits, right? And there are some things that have to happen before you can even get to that level of culture. What this organization was saying to me is that we want to make it part of our culture efforts. We want to change behavior. We want to understand the value of inclusion. We want to understand the career path. We want to understand the contributions. We want to be more than just a transaction. We want to feel like we're part of this company that's growing. We can grow at the same time, is what employees were really telling me. And so I thought, well, that makes sense to me. And it just made sense to me to say, listen, culture already exists. And there are some good things that the company has already done. My hat goes off to Dr. Phil Harrison for creating this beautiful organization 15 years ago and still thriving. And so it wasn't that we needed to create culture, we needed to reimagine it, right? We needed to think about what does culture look like in 2023, 24, 25, and beyond, which was a little different than how many DSOs sort of started and continued to thrive. And so the challenge for us is the thing that got us here won't get us there, but the thing that got us here has made us very successful. Now you're into the HR influencing, the business partner. How can you convince people that we can be better if we do things a little different? And I was embraced with that. And it just kind of gave me an opportunity to sort of manage and come up with an idea that would be catchy. But the catchy idea, it wasn't just a phrase, culture reimagined. It really was my vision all along that this work was going to be for the people, by the people, right? And so the culture reimagined really gave us an opportunity to explore all of the input that came through BPI. And it gave us an opportunity to analyze and come up with themes, the things we heard about the most, the things we didn't hear about, all of the 300, 400 comments that people volunteered in addition to the survey. It really gave us an opportunity to explore and package and really come up with the things that we needed to work on. So this was truly meeting the organization where it was, understanding what our employees were telling us, and then putting it together and then sharing that information with them, which was somewhat new as well. So it's not just, hey, we need you to spend 30 minutes on a survey and then you never hear from us again. It's like, here are the themes. This is what you told us. And so we packaged it in a way. The volume 1 of our culture magazine was just informational. This is what we heard. This is what you said. And so this is what we're going to work on. In true spirit of the dental industry, the goal was to develop treatment plans for all of the opportunities. And so volume 2, which is our State of the Culture magazine, is sort of a follow-up to the data. It sort of gave us an opportunity to highlight some of the things that we have done. But it also gave us an opportunity to highlight our employees, because there were a lot of positive things that we highlighted in the magazine. There were a lot of opportunistic things that we highlighted in the magazine. But we also highlighted actual employees, and we used quotes. The marketing department did a phenomenal job with just making it look like a real magazine. And so when we sent this out to the employees, they felt like, wow, this is me. This represents what I said. It gives me data in terms of how we were able to sort of move the needle, coming in 2 years ago, right at 100 in the top 100 most loved workplaces, and now able to catapult from 100 to number 36 was just a tremendous effort. It may have been my vision, but really the employees gave us the opportunity to pull all of this together. And we have actively worked on the things that they have asked us to work on. And so I think part of the drive and the authenticity and the energy that we now have as an organization, it moves beyond transactional. It now feels like the company is actually, they understand who I am. I've actually had employees say that to me. You have provided the forum and the venue for me to share in a very safe place. And so I think that that's step number one. If people are not willing to share, if there's no psychological safety, which is one of the things that we're working on, then why are we doing this? And so people are saying, wow, there's a level of inclusion that we'd like to see more of. There's psychological safety that we'd like to see more of. There's a level of accountability that we'd like to see more of. There's career pathing that we'd like to see more of. So again, it really laid out the things that we are now working on as an organization that I think feels very active. It feels like we're doing the right things. But again, it's easy to do those things when you have the data. So I go back to helping us with that baseline. And then it's really up to us to figure out, what do we do? Now that we have the information, what do we do with the information? So I think what has made the difference for us is that we're 2 years in and we're still honoring our commitment to do something with what our employees have asked of us.
Yeah, it's so heartwarming to hear just the quality of the success story with the whole most of workplace values and how they connect with Mint. And really, the fact that you are responding to the employee comments is the biggest thing. We've heard time and time again concern about survey fatigue, when really what that means is lack of action fatigue. Employees will be eager to speak their mind, raise their voices if leadership at a company hears them, understands them, acknowledges them, and reacts and tries to improve based on those comments. And it definitely shows at Mint. I mean, looking at your Spark score increased by 6 points and your love score increased by 4 whole points, which for those of you that don't know with our scoring metrics, those are massive jumps for just a single year period.
I agree. I was pleasantly surprised, but I really wasn't, because I know the work that has gone into this on our end, that just the communication, the stressing the importance. This is what you ask for. You want to be heard. Let us know how you feel. Just the continuous request for feedback, and just focus groups and just asking questions, and me getting out in the market and just going from clinic to clinic, making surprise appearances, really understanding how the scheduling goes. What can we do a better job of? I mean, with total rewards and benefits and all that being a part of my world, we were able to make improvements in those areas as well. Just some of it was low hanging fruit, but it still needed to be done, and it still came at a cost. But based on what the employees told us, we did it. Jury duty and vacation pay and PTO and all those things did not exist. And it's amazing how a survey can sort of uncover all the things that we probably should have been doing all along, but gave us the motivation to be able to say, what, this is the year we're going to do it. And so I think it's just wonderful, just the way we reward people, all the things that we have done as it related to what employees told us is just absolutely phenomenal. Going to 4-day work weeks in our clinics is a big deal. That's a revenue conversation, right? That's okay. You go from 5 to 4. So that means you're going to be closed on the 5th day. It became our Chick-fil-A moment, right? Chick-fil-A is not open on Sundays. And so neither are we, but we wanted to figure out a way, how can we take that 5th day and sort of morph it into the other 4 to give people, because it's moving beyond the transaction. What do we need from employees? Yes, we need you to work, but we also need you to replenish. We also need you to be comfortable with everything that life will throw at you, right? Because life will continue to life. And right. And so if you have an opportunity to replenish, you're going to be more productive in the 4 days that you're here. You can't pour from an empty cup, as we know. And so we're giving people an opportunity to fill that cup up. So when they come to work, they are motivated, they are empowered, they have the energy that they need. And more importantly, they're focused, right? Because they've had that additional day to really take care of whatever it is they need to take care of. So it's just things like that. The comments that people made, the scores, to your point, I think gave us an opportunity to see the increase because we are paying attention to our employees.
Exactly right. Yeah. And it comes at a cost, but it's really no different than any other investment. You're investing in employee happiness, and that comes back in a very monetary way as well, in retention and direct engagement. So I'm curious, was there any piece of data or employee comment that really just caught you off guard? Anything that you completely weren't expecting? And if so, how did you react?
I wouldn't say off guard. I would say that it provided an opportunity for me to sort of sit back and explore. So, for example, when you take a look at our love score, I call it the love score, right? And it gave, which was not a bad score, but I noticed that in the grand scheme of things, that score was a little lower than the gratitude score. And I thought, this is interesting because one of our values is love, and which speaks to wanting people to love what they do, wanting, make sure that you love the company enough and your teammates enough be generous with your feedback, be always strive for this continuous improvement in the spirit of perfection. I mean, so we went there and we have held true to that for the last 15 years. So I sort of expected for the love score sort of to be larger than it was. But then when I started looking at some of the other scores and I thought gratitude is a little higher. So, which was consistent with what I heard in the market. People are very grateful to work for a company like Mint. It just has so much to offer and there's so many optics and vibes. And I often joke with Dr. Harrison and Clint Rochelle, who I say, listen, this is really a marketing company. We just happen to clean teeth, right? We're much more than that. But because of our billboards and how we present ourselves and that whole luxury experience, we want to make it the patient experience everything, right? But what this work is doing, it's providing us with an opportunity to align the employee experience with that of our patient experience. And that's the focus. That's the fill in the blank moment that this data, that this information has provided for us. We are now focusing on the employee experience. I think that that becomes very, very, very important. But because 80% of our workforce is women, we've got Gen Z, we've got a lot of things. And if you think about Gen Z, that particular generation, they value purpose and flexibility and technology and all of those things. And it's like, so we have to make sure that our practices are being tailored from our recruiting efforts, highlighting the opportunity for work-life balance and all those types of things. So this gave us sort of, as I said earlier, this was the catalyst for change. We know the type of workforce we're trying to attract. We know the type of workforce that works well here. We're now comparing data to the number of years that people work here. We have a loyalty program that gives people an opportunity to, you've been here for 5 years. There was a Tesla waiting for you with your name on it, which is unheard of in any other DSO. Again, loyalty means something to us. And so we're trying to tap into a lot of different things. So when you come to Mint, people come here for different reasons, but it's like a sensory overload. Like if the marketing doesn't get you, the good service will. If the good service doesn't get you, the patient experience will. If that doesn't get you, we've got the great HR department, if I may say so myself. We've got very robust and great operations department. Everything is just on point. And so people come here for a lot of different things. And so I really appreciate being a part of this experiment. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to add value. As I said earlier, high growth, common culture, scaling processes, and increasing company valuation is what I do. And I'm just honored to be able to do it here at Mint.
Fantastic. I'm curious, you mentioned loyalty programs and the marketing aspect of things with billboards. What sort of tangible benefits or improvements have you noticed in whether employee retention or even customer client reviews, as happy employees make happy customers? What sort of changes have you noticed as a result of increasing the emotional sentiment at Mint?
I think the biggest thing for us, and I think it's rooted in that gratitude score versus the love score, right? I mean, people are grateful to be here, but the challenge for us is we need people to love their job, right? So it's like, I'm grateful to be here, but I'm more grateful to have a job than it is to love the job that I have. And so those are the types of questions that we can't run from. We've got to figure out how people are, we're calling balls and strikes here. We've got a lot riding on this. So we want to get this right for the employee. And it's not saying that people don't love working here. It's just now that we have an opportunity to ask a different type of question, now that the gratitude score is a little higher than the love score, right? And I would personally prefer to see both of those numbers come up, but especially the love piece, because that's what we're trying to create. We have a value called love. We have been highlighted in Newsweek for being a most loved workplace in the country. And so we want to make sure that people love us just as much as they appreciate and are grateful for the things that we provide and for the ways that they can contribute. So that's just a personal goal for me. But I think the biggest thing too is what I've seen over the last couple of years is there's a level of authenticity that and comfort that is breaking through. People are now comfortable sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that's everything because it gives people an opportunity. It says a lot of things. It says now we're beginning to trust you more. We're beginning to realize that, okay, you do listen and you will address my concerns. It may not be what people want to hear, but at the end of the day, they just want to know that they're being heard. And sometimes being heard also leads to feeling like they're appreciated. And sometimes being appreciated leads to more productivity. That level of productivity and the level of appreciation and the level of being heard leads to positive Google reviews. Right. And so we've seen an uptick in all of that. We've seen an uptick in our patients saying, wow, this continues to be a great experience for me. But again, our employees, in terms of their experience, they're very comfortable saying, hey, thank you for doing this, or have you thought about this? One of the ways in which we communicate with our employees is through it's a Happio vendor, and it's our intranet. It's called the MINT Hub. It is the primary way in which we communicate to our employees, and our employees communicate to us. So we've just renewed that for an upgrade, and we're getting ready to take it to the next level, because before it was more about pictures and celebrating birthdays and giving shout outs and stuff like that. But we've taken it to the next level. We've invested in a higher degree that's going to give us an opportunity to conduct spot surveys to how are you feeling about this? What do you think about the new PTO policy? What do you think about the jury duty leave? What do you think about the loyalty program? All those types of things gives us an opportunity to not have to wait once or twice a year, but to be able to just create something that gives us real-time data. Because again, part of the scalability is being prepared to scale and to develop people. I also think there has been a desire since we're uncovering so much, and people are now thinking, wow, they're really serious about this. It has given us an opportunity to create a more robust training, something that gives us an opportunity to move beyond just telling people what to do. But why can't we build a curriculum that speaks directly to sentiments? Because these are all the things that we need our leaders to have, right? So if you're a leader of people, you probably need to know how to have a courageous conversation. You probably need to know how making this comment is not in the best interest of inclusivity. You probably need to know just all those types of things, how to do this, that, and the other. And so we've seen a start of that with our emerging leader program. And so we're just bringing the best and the brightest in. We're having them go through assessments. It's not just for us and for them while they're here, but we've also been told that it's helpful for in their personal lives as well. But it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, we're meeting you where you are. These assessments are designed to understand where we would like to go. If you would like to go, some people say, nope, I'm good where I am. Okay, well, that's fine. You be the best operations office manager you could possibly be. But if you have desire and aspirations to move up and maybe be a director, vice president, even in my role one day, here are the things you should do. Here are the experiences that you should be working on. And so as an emerging leader, that gives people an opportunity to feel good about a career and not just a job. But it also gives us an opportunity to develop a pipeline, because talent is expensive. And so we probably should have a balanced approach that not only allows us to take talent from the outside, but hopefully we can start to build it from within. So those are just a more of an appetite for better training, more robust training, the quality of training as it relates to sentiment. But also I see that people are willing to have more authentic conversations as it relates to their experience, because they now have confidence that we're going to listen and perhaps do something about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure several different people leaders over several locations in many states, things can be very different from one location to the other. And that's where the value of these targeted pulse surveys can really shine. In addition to organization wide, you can target certain locations or certain groups and say, what do you think about this? Where, like, this is what you said, this is what we're doing. How's it going? Right?
Yes, for sure. That's a great point. And we have to be ready for that. I mean, the optics here in Texas are very different than the optics in Atlanta. And so the optics in Indiana, they may respond completely different to our billboards than they do in Florida. And so it has caused us to rethink our strategy, particularly just like with any other competitive advantage. I spend time in our dental schools, for example, talking to seniors who are getting ready to graduate. We're talking to them now as an opportunity to bring them on, where traditionally we like people with 3 to 4 or 5 years experience as a doctor. But if that is going to prevent us from opening new markets and going to market, then perhaps we go to the schools. And if we need to train people on the MINT way, perhaps there's a training program that we can do, call it Emerging Leader 2.0, that we could train people, develop them but also secure their employment. And that in and of itself would prevent them from us from not being able to go to market as quickly as we would like. So there are all types of business revenue type scalability valuation benefits that we have gained just by having the knowledge and the information from this wonderful service that BPI has issued. For us, it's just trying to figure out what to do next because there's just so much. I mean, we literally could spend the next 5 years trying to explore with all of this data. And perhaps we will, but we needed, this represents a really good place for us to start. And the response has been just absolutely wonderful. And it really has informed a lot of what we do. Our kickoff meetings, our just casual conversations, our everything is now connected to Culture Reimagined. And again, the baseline for Culture Reimagined has been the information that BPI has put together for us. So we're very excited.
Us too. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really the power of love, right? You mentioned how your gratitude score was slightly higher than the love score, but increasing love is really the ultimate marker. You can't get better than love. I love it here. That's the biggest comment an employee can give.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going for. I think that's how we'll get to be number one from 100 to 36 to at least in the top five. I think if we can just get people to understand and be willing to share, why do you love this company? To your point, I think if we can start to tap into that, and perhaps that's the next strategy that we may leverage, but we're still talking about a lot of stuff now because we don't want everything to be aspirational. We want to address some things like in the moment, like right now, like what's not working for you, like today. It's a combination, right? And so we want to make sure we're responding accordingly. But we also want to make sure that we continue as an HR function to be the answer to all the business challenges, right? There's a business plan that this company has the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What I'm learning is that there is not a need for a separate human resources plan. We have a plan, but it should not be seen or operated in isolation of the overall business plan. In fact, the HR plan is the answer to the overall business plan. And so if the business plan is to invest for growth, if the business plan is to increase profit and revenue, if the business plan is to extend your low cost position across the market, you're not going to be able to accomplish any of that if you have not connected with your employee base, if you don't understand the sentiments that are preventing people from giving 110%, if you're not really creating that environment where people feel like they can be successful despite what they look like, despite what their skin color is, despite all those types of things, none of that business plan is going to work. So we have the answers, and I think this has helped us uncover the answers so we can honor our obligations and meet our business expectations.
Beautifully said. Absolutely. I want to open up the chat a little bit. Any participants there, feel free to weigh in our Q&A section. Any questions that you have for Marion Mint and his Culture Reimagined initiative here. While folks are typing that, Marion, you've mentioned there's so many directions you could take this. I'm curious though, what in your view is next for Mint?
We have a lot going on. As I mentioned earlier, we are an entrepreneurial company. We're not just satisfied with mastering cleaning teeth or seating a crown or some type of oral surgery. I mean, there's so many things, some of which I cannot mention, but I will tell you that I think it's going to revolutionize the world of dentistry. And it's just taking it beyond where I ever thought dentistry would go. We're already looking at, first of all, part of why we are able to deliver so quickly is because we have our own lab here in Texas. And so they just do a wonderful, wonderful job. But there's so many other business avenues, perhaps some acquisitions, just ways in which we can expand our services, because Dr. Harrison's goal is to change the world. He wants everybody to feel good about going to the dentist. And so if he can provide that service that includes a whole lot of things, his mission is accomplished. And so we're working on all those things. So expanding our level of products, expanding our geography in terms of where our services can be available, all of that is on the horizon. This was supposed to be a year of of let's just sharpen the tools that we have, right? And that lasted for about 6 months. And then we started to go into this growth mode, and all the things that we said we wouldn't do, we did, which says to me that it's important to be flexible, agile, open to new ideas. You never know when something is going to come your way, but we're always prepared for that. And so I think we're only going to get bigger and better. I think that from an HR perspective, our big thing now is going to be around retention. And I think that's very, very important. And I feel like now that we're in a much better position to focus on that, now that we understand the sentiments that matter. Ooh, I think that might be the next chapter.
There you
Sentiments
go.
that matter. And so I think that's important because we are now equipped. We're now equipped to have the conversation. We now know we have spent enough time to say, hey, when you come to Mint, you're going to get this, this, that, and the other. That just would not have happened if we had not slowed down long enough to really look at some of this stuff and say, hey, this is what we need to do for our employees. And if the employee experience is what it needs to be, then our patient experience will follow. So I think there's going to be more of that. And I just think we're going to continue to grow.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I am honored really to be on this journey with you in some form in our end here at Most Love Workplace. It's fantastic seeing growth and change and spreading the love really in real time. Fantastic to see, and really what drew me here to my position at Most Love Workplace.
Very good. We're very good.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, Marion. It looks like we've got a question in the chat here. Why do companies in today's age need to look at their culture more than ever? How does Most Love Workplace contribute to that for those that haven't heard of them?
I think that's a great question. I think that when you start to look at the need for talent, no organization can afford to box itself out of any talent, because that's what it's all about. It's about talent. How can you attract the right talent to meet business objectives? Most companies, even the nonprofit companies, profit is not a dirty word. It helps continue to allow things to grow, to people to be developed, resources to be obtained, delivery models to be established. I mean, it just, profit helps a lot of things. I think that it's very important that we recognize that in order to compete, we also have to be in a position to create the most attractive environment ever, because there are a lot of companies that are doing it really well. And so people have options, they have choices. And so the goal is for us to convince them to come here. And the goal is to convince them to understand what is it that we're offering. In fact, that's part of the value proposition for an employee. What are we offering in exchange for your discretionary effort? And if we can't articulate that, and as I talk to my recruiters, we don't have a lot of time to make that case because there are other companies that are pitching something similar. And so we just have to be in a position to be able to attract and retain, but we have to be very knowledgeable about our products. This is what you're going to get. It's about having a career. If you're interested in career, great. We've got a job for you too, but just know it's more around a career and not just being transactional with you. And so I think in that, and every company has to figure out what their EVP is. What are you offering? Who are you to that employee? What can they offer to you? And so I think the culture piece is very important for people to feel comfortable coming to you, because that's how you grow and that's how you scale. If you don't have people interested in you, if you don't have people who are staying for long periods of time, that's problematic. And in this environment, especially post-COVID, people are now focused on a couple things that we didn't necessarily, we've always known it to be there and we've called it different things, but wellness is very important. And so you want to create an environment where people can feel well, not just at home, but people want to feel well while at work. And so if you've created that environment, that could be the thing that says, what, I'm coming to you, because these other two companies that I interviewed with, they were not able to articulate that, or I didn't get a sense that they are serious and the video doesn't match the audio type of thing. And so I think that that is something that is very important to understand from a talent perspective. You just want to be in a position where you're not driving talent away and you're not boxing talent out because you have not created the right environment that's conducive for anyone that wants to have a career and work really hard and receive some things in return. You don't want to turn those people away.
You get what you give, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, we are at time. Marion, thank you again so much for joining and participating in our Most Loved Workplace community. Like I said, I really, really look forward to seeing Mint continue to grow, and you're hopefully gunning for that #1 spot in the next year or two. Ladies, gentlemen, folks, thanks for tuning in. Keep spreading the love.
Very good, Zach. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you need anything, let us know.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good day now.
All right. You too now.
Thanks. Bye.